Lifted the curfew following the cost of living protests, which led to 25 deaths. Over 100 protesters have been arrested. President Julius Maada Bio addressed the nation on Friday, saying the protests were an attempt to overthrow his government. He said those responsible for killing police officers during the protests would face the full rigor of the law. Mr. Bio has also replaced some military chiefs, but families of those who've lost loved ones are demanding the government release their bodies for a befitting burial. Well, the BBC's Thomas Nardi reports, and you may find some of what he's got to say disturbing.
A mother struggling to come to terms with her loss. Maria Sisi lost a 16-year-old daughter during Wednesday's violent protests. She was hit by a stray bullet at home.
I'm very sad and hurt. I have struggled to take care of my daughter to this stage, and now she is dead. I feel a lot of pain.
The bullet first scratched the stomach of an elderly woman who managed to survive and then hit 16-year-old Khadija Ba, killing her instantly. The bodies of the 25 who died are deposited at the central morgue. Abdul-Ba, father of the deceased, had come here to claim her body, but was denied.
Very promising picking Andy. Sorry. And all anybody who is still young picking at the house, now you I ask now. Now appeal for you, letting you picking it. How good better for you.
The police opened fire on protesters who said they were angry at the rise in cost of living and alleged human rights abuses. I'm at a residential area in Freetown, and I've just come to a house where one of the bullets that was fired at protesters penetrated a heavy metal door and created a very big hole. Now let me go inside to have a look. And it went through this heavy metal door and then went out through the glass window. The occupant of this room, who was around at that time, was very lucky to have escaped. So after the incident, they were able to recover the bullet, and I have it in my hand. It's very small, but it's caused considerable damage to the door and the window. It's just evidence that security forces used live bullets on protesters.
What we had on Wednesday was a very unfortunate situation, and
Valnora Edwin is a good governance and human rights campaigner.
There has been challenges with the police response over time, and we have been advocating for what we have called community policing and working more effectively on early warning signals. So your response should also be commensurate to the threat that you're having. And so we're very concerned that even if the protesters became riotous, but using live ammunition was a bit extreme under the circumstances, which we feel is very unfortunate.
And that's the Sierra Leone governance campaigner Valnora Edwin ending that report by the BBC's Thomas Nardi. Well, last week's conflagration has drawn the attention of the international community, including the regional body ECOWAS. The current chair, Guinea-Bissau President Umaru Sissoko Mbalo, flew into Freetown this morning and has met the government. Well, afterwards, he read out a statement.
Let me start by condemning this act of gruesome violence where law enforcement officers have been brutally killed in cold blood. Violence has no place in a democracy dispensation, particularly in a country like Sierra Leone, that has made immense progress in building a stability democratic policy over the years. As the chairman of the ECOWAS authority, I am equally pleased that the president has launched an investigation into the event of the 10th August, which is in line with the ECOWAS position. I want to encourage the president to continue to engage with the various stakeholders in the coming days, including getting the Peace Commission to undertake a strategic engagement with youth and opposition parties in the various parts of the country. The President also informed me that he will be meeting with the traditional chiefs, religion leaders, civil society, and the political party leaders.
And that's Umaru Sissoco Embalo, who's the president of Guinea-Bissau and current chair of ECOWAS. And our reporter, Umaru Fofana, is in the Sierra Leonean capital. He's on the line into the Focus studio in London now. Good evening, Umaru. Just a practical question, really. So the government on this program, in the person of the president, Mr. Bio, said that he blamed elements within the opposition for being behind this latest bout of violence. The opposition also on this program have said they've got nothing to do with it. What is the purpose then of ECOWAS? What can they do?
Hi, Esau. Well, there is a lot many here believe that ECOWAS can do in this circumstance, not least because there is hardly anything called dialogue that is happening in Sierra Leone today between the parties. I mean, both in terms of the president and the opposition parties, generally speaking. But since this incident happened, we have not heard of any meeting that the president has called with the opposition, despite the accusation that they were involved, one which, like you rightly said, they have vehemently denied. In the last half an hour, I have called the interim chairman of the All People's Congress Party, that's the main opposition party, to find out whether, in fact, they also met with the ECOWAS chairman. And he said no. He said that the speaker of the ECOWAS parliament, who is a Sierra Leonean, had called him that they would be meeting today, but that they called him later on to say that the meeting had been rescheduled. And that's up to when I spoke to him half an hour ago, the meeting hadn't happened. And he expressed what he called disappointment that the meeting had not happened for them to have been able to present their own side and vehemently deny and clarify that they had had nothing to do with the events of last week.
So what happens next?
It's not clear, but it seems different parties and different groups are meeting. The Interreligious Council met today. And again, a short while ago, I spoke to the head of that Interreligious Council, the Catholic Archbishop, Tamba Charles, Ero Tamba Charles. He said that yes, they had met, and that they were planning to also meet on Thursday with the government, as well as with all political parties and all stakeholders involved, to be able to calm down the nerves. Because as it stands now, there is tension here virtually every day, with all sorts of things being said by various people on social media and all of that. So people here believe that the way to go would be for dialogue to happen, which the Interreligious Council, who were very much pivotal in holding meetings during the country's civil war in the 1990s, the hope is that they will also intervene this time around and hold a meeting of all the political leaders and all interest groups.
And you talked about the country's civil war in the 1990s. I just wonder, Umaru, that does this stand as a spectre that haunts people when violence of such a nature that we saw last week is visited on the streets of Freetown and elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. So it does. I mean, it is something which has been also talked about by various people, different people here, saying that the scenes conjured up memories of the 1990s at the height of the country's civil war. And people have been calling, some cool heads have been calling for nerves to be calmed down, for people to dialogue, saying that Jojo is better than war. So they would rather the parties came together and negotiated and discussed this matter instead of allowing the whole thing to spill itself out on the streets of Freetown and elsewhere, not least in the north of the country. So yes, it is something which is not lost in anyone at all here.
And in the interim, Umaru, there's been repercussions both in Freetown and the northern town of Makeni. Tell us a bit more about what's been going on. I mean, apparently in Freetown we're hearing of arrests, plus a major market has been destroyed.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in Freetown, a major market on along the Sani Abacha Street area, where I would imagine hundreds of stalls were erected with thousands of traders doing business there every day to be able to eke out a living. All those stalls were cleared. Apparently, either on Friday or over the weekend. I went there over the weekend and I saw all the stalls had disappeared. And I also drove through the area again today, and I discovered that none of the stalls were there. I mean, I've received messages on Facebook, people telling me that their stalls have been taken away, have been cleared up. They don't know by who, they don't know why. They say it's affecting their livelihood. I mean, obviously, there are people here who feel that they cause a problem on the street generally, but the timing of the removal or the clearing up of those stalls has drawn up a lot of concerns here, that these are mostly opposition supporters, and some opposition members are saying that that's why they were deliberately targeted. But of course, there have been arrests again going on. We yet do not have any exact figures as to how many people have been arrested. A short while ago, I spoke to the head of the Criminal Investigations Department. He admitted, he said that yes, arrests were still going on, and even today some were taken in. But he wouldn't or couldn't give me exact numbers as to how many were being held by the police.
And finally, you talked about Freetown there. What of the opposition stronghold of Makeni?
Yes, in Makeni, the latest in Tokmin town and across the country is the apparent shooting dead of one Hassan Samson Bangura. He's known by his alias Evangelist Samson. Apparently, yesterday, some eyewitnesses have told me that a truckload of, rather a van with military men went to an area in Makeni where they met some young people sitting down and having a chat, and then they got off the van, which led to these young people running helter-skelter, and then they opened fire, and they shot this man, Evangelist Samson. They picked him up and put him on the vehicle they were using, and then they drove off with him. We yet do not know where his remains are, assuming that he's dead, which of course has been confirmed by family members in Makeni as well as by an official of the Ministry of Information here in Freetown. But it is something which has conjured up a lot of concern about that, not least because in the same Makeni, on Thursday, just after the incident of Wednesday, police allegedly went to a residence as well, again in the central part of the town, and then they opened the door, knocked on the door, people came out and they shot one dead, as well as they shot another one who was running away. He has been taken and is being looked after at the Makeni Public Hospital. So these two incidents have brought up concerns, not least in Makeni, but of course across Sierra Leone as well.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Umaru Fofana live for us in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Many thanks indeed.